Okay, so good morning once again. To the Wednesday. Obviously, as you know, you have two classes. Hopefully, we can finish up with the slides. Okay, so I think we got to uh, discussing trust and commitment yesterday. Let me see if I have to put in my headset. Yeah. All right. So we got to discussing trust and commitment yesterday as input or as variables for measuring what we call relationships. And we came to understand that both concepts, may be, at the beginning or at the end of the relationship, or an input, and at the same time as what we call an outcome of a relationship. Obviously, the literature itself, academics are still debating the issue, but for a relationship marketer or for a marketing person, you want to see trust and commitment at the beginning and at the end, of the relationship, meaning that you want to see it as an input at the same time as an output of a relationship, because there are some conditions, call it preconditions, that you need to establish before someone could be trusted. Now, that precondition itself could be seen as commitment because they are variables for eliciting trust, as we got to actually, explained, yesterday by your colleagues. But of course, that particular trust, it is not end in itself. We got to understand that that trust is some kind of a beginning, so to speak, scoping, making sure that you could have a foothold to begin a relationship on. And so I think the best approach for us to see these two elements is that they are the ingredient and they are the outcome as well. So we probably will be on a safer side to know that yes, for you to start any trusting what do you call relationship, there must be some effort that you must put in place, before that. So that said, we'll look at the other drivers, and we're saying that these are antecedents to relationship building. These are drivers, to relationship building. And there are other drivers that we also have to understand, in building relationships, so that when we find ourselves in contexts like that, we know what is expected of us as marketers. And one of them is risk, salience, and emotions. I think we had some in explanation yesterday about these elements and what they mean in relationships. Who can, who can actually take one of them and explain, why are they drivers to relationships? Risk, salience, and emotions. Yeah, we're saying that risk, salience, and relationships are also drivers to relationship um, building. Who can take that, or who can take closeness, customer satisfaction, or inertia to explain? Yeah, guys, I'm waiting. Anyone? Okay. So from yesterday's conversation, we said that any situation where there is a perceived risk, all right, there's a high perceived risk, or that is for either the beginning or exiting a relationship, there's a perceived risk. They tend to that particular encounter tend to be a relational as opposed to a transactional. And for example, if you go into a contract now, not actually fulfilling the contract you know that if you have to exit the contract, it's going to cost you so much, an upfront cost. You have to pay quite a lot of money to exit the contract. Certainly, that is risk. And whenever you perceive a high risk in a situation like that, you want to commit to a relationship. Now, if we take, for example, on our social, relationships front, if you take marriage, for example, you realize that people quite easily, fall out or can actually leave a boyfriend girlfriend relationships than leave in a marriage, right? Because obviously the former, which is the boyfriend girlfriend relationship, does not have, at its core a very high risk than in a marriage, all right? So in most of the time, you see that from a social relationship perspective, one is high risk than the other, and as a result, you know the the engagement tend to be relational than the other one. Now, the same way when you take uh, medical relationships, all right, health. When you take health, for example, the idea that some conditions, you know, people find it much more closer or personal, all right, as a condition, they tend to have, some key personnel to deal with. For example, I'm not sure that people who have, or when it comes to dental care, for example, people shop around for medical attention. I think that a lot more people have quite a closer relationship with their dentist than they have with other, OPD, kind of ailments, for example. Why? Because dental, health is very, very personal, very, very close. And so most people do not want to open up their mouth to so many, what do you call medical personnel. And so you're likely to have one, dentist that actually sees to your dental care than having plethora of them or quite a number of dentists. So every time you have a dental issue, you're going to one doctor, you're jumping to another doctor. I don't think that that's how people work. A lot more people would stay with one particular dentist because dental care is very, very personal, very, very close to people. And also, when the issues or when the service or the service or the product is very salient, and when we say salient, we're talking about things that seek attention, things that are actually very, very important. Those kind of services, goods and services. Again, there's a relationship that is built because of the enormity of their value. So most valuable things, most things of attention of a higher salience, we tend to build relationships in the circumstances. And as we said, when you take FMCG, for example, fast moving consumer goods, they're not things that people place huge values on them because they're things most of which people actually buy and they can actually flip it out. In fact, when you buy a bottle of fat milk, all right, and it doesn't actually go well, I don't think that you're going to cry your heart out because you have actually, say you have actually bought a farm milk and it didn't go down well. You're not going to have that kind of emotional instability than, maybe a pair of jewelry that you spent so much money on and then it goes somewhere bad. I mean, that would cause you quite a lot of emotional instability because the effort or the involvement in it, in terms of buying it, and then of course the importance that you place on, a set of, jewelry, is so high, and so you would rather establish a relationship with a supplier than establishing a relationship with a fine milk or fine ice, a seller that you bought it from. I hope you understand that. Yeah, is that
Okay,
clear?
yes, sir. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
all right. So, and the same way about closeness, as we have discussed. Now, closeness in terms of geographic closeness, and in terms of emotive closeness as well, as it was explained the other time. If we replace closeness with the word like intimacy, all right, any relationship that actually requires a certain level of intimacy, it is much more relationship marketing driven or relational driven than a transactional, because it involves emotions. Emotions are something that you cannot spend or expend anyhow. All right. We take good care of it. Why? Because it's related to your health being, your well-being, it related to your heart, it related to the most emotive part of your body that could actually cause you harm. So in any engagement or transaction that has closeness, or we can replace it with intimacy with it, you do not see people being or demonstrating transactional, what do you call character or some level of carelessness. No, you don't throw about going into relationship after relationships when it requires intimacy, because you could only develop one intimacy at a time. And so if you look at any relationship that has a very, very close, attachment, like your family, like your husband, wife, your boyfriend, etc. Even when it comes to your religion, all right, religion is a very personal stuff. It's a very close, kind of relationship. People do not have two or three religions. They do not shop around for religions. You commit to one and you stay with it for a very long time. So relationships, or let me use the word engagement, engagements that have a very, intimate character, it tends to be a very relational, kind of engagement. And so if you find yourself in a service or in a business that has these characteristics as we're discussing, then of course, the modus operandi has to be a relational one, not a transactional one, because of the characteristics that we're discussing. And the same goes with customer satisfaction. We said it's a driver to relationship because satisfaction is multidimensional. It may not necessarily be just the product quality, as we have explained. The customer may be looking out for so many other factors, including your attitude and behavior, how open, how smiley the customer actually finds you. And that could actually inform the level of satisfaction. Because satisfaction is so complex that it has no one character, we do not know which part of the entire product and services the customer is going to draw satisfaction from. And as a result, it could, or it actually has to be a driver to what, building what do you call relationships. And then, of course, we have inertia. Inertia, that is the idea or the occasion that people do not want to take any action, whether because of, whatever reason they have. Inertia means that the individual is not somehow interested in, taking any further action, and so the relationship is there, it's stale or something. I mean, in most inertia cases, a relationship persists, or in what do you call, buying instances or buying and selling instances where there's likelihood of inertia, then of course there is a relationship, because the customer cannot be bothered to take any other action, for example, leaving the business for other business. And we'll find that most people, when they sign up to insurance or they sign up to banking product, for example, it is difficult for them to change, their minds, even when the company is not performing. And that is, a sign of inertia. You can't be bothered to do anything else. Sometimes inertia happens because we do not really place value on that particular, transaction, although it is, of importance, but its level of importance may not necessarily cause us to behave in a certain way that we can actually jump from one company to the other. And so in instances where there is inertia, it is in a relational in that perspective. And that's why, sometimes we use the word, you have a telecom, a company that you're with, their service is crap, but you can't be bothered to change the SIM card. All right. So you said, oh, this company, I'll leave them one day, yet you're still there. So that is a clear characteristics of inertia. And in an inertia situation, people tend to keep relationships. All right, Emmanuel. Emmanuel.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
So please, from the point of view of the company, is inertia actually a good thing since it retains the customers that they would have otherwise lost if they had continued their the service to them?
Yeah,
So to the company, is a good thing.
yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, inertia is definitely not a good thing from the company perspective, because it is actually considered as coerced, what do you call coerced loyalty. Coerced loyalty because the person is actually coerced, or they are forced, whether indirectly or directly, to be in that relationship. So it's like a sour, a relationship where, when the best partner comes, the person is likely to leave, which means that when the customer finds the most motivation, or finds a very powerful motivation that can actually cause them to take action, they're going to leave. So you're actually on a borrowed legs in terms of you, the supplier. You're on a borrowed legs because this individual is not taking an action because they haven't found any motivation powerful enough to cause them to quit your relationship. And when that time comes, maybe with the arrival of a new, what do you call, supplier, or with the arrival of what do you call, alternative, supplier, and they're able to get enough motivation, they would quit the relationship. And again, even when there is inertia and the person is still there, you realize that they are not perhaps buying more than they should, or they're not buying more, from you. They're just buying the basic, although they may have the commitment, or they may have the ability to actually transact more with you. Because of inertia, or because they don't really find your, what do you call, effort much more motivating, they are spending on a low, on a level that it is not, considered as high growth. So you see that the person is just buying, oh, you just give me 2 cedis, give me two. They're always buying 2 cedis credit. They're not going up because they just want to keep the SIM card, but nothing else. So inertia is not actually valuable to you, the supplier. That's a good question. It could actually give you your daily sales, but it may not give you growth, high growth. Yeah. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
That's right. Thank you, Emmanuel. Okay. So these are some of the, drivers, of a relationship that we can find. Obviously, when you look at resilience and emotions, that promotes relationship, as we have talked about. Risk as perceived probability of loss. So when people think that by leaving, they would lose quite a lot of things, they perceive that risk. Obviously, they would want to, keep the relationship. And I'm sure that a lot of us have actually heard this quite a lot from our parents, when, and it's a cliche, they say that, your mother will say, I would, I would, I would have left this, marriage had it not been the kids. All right. We hear these things quite a lot. I mean, they are cliche in African families. And that tells you the perceived risk that the woman actually thinks would happen, just in case, they have to quit the relationship. And some of them, they will talk about, the idea that the children will become split. They could now play truancy, etc. And that perceived risk actually substitutes, the intention to keep, the relationship. So when there is a termination risk, or there's a high risk perceived when the relationship is terminated, of course people keep, to the relationship. Sometimes when the barrier to entry is also high, people keep to relationship, because when they enter one relationship, if they have to exit and enter another relationship, it's going to be high as well. So they do not want to do that. If you take product, for example, mortgage, how mortgage works is that you pre-finance, which they call equity, and the bank also, put in equity. Now, no one wants to, unless of course people who are rich who can do that. No one wants to go into one mortgage and go into another mortgage, several times. I mean, once you commit to one mortgage, you want to stay the course, and it's a long-term relationship. So you have many products and services that have that character, whether entry barrier is high or exit barrier is high. in these instances, a relationship is kept, all right? When entry barrier is low and exit barrier is low, you can imagine that's a very transactional character of a market, right? Again, salience as prominence of exchange, as we said, in relationships where the exchange is much more prominent, has a lot more attention, is of importance to you, you keep relationship, and as well as emotions and then personalized service, as we have talked about. Okay, so trust and commitment debates that we had, these are the variables: trust, confidence, and reliability and integrity. That's what we use to explain trust. Reduce risk perception, reduces transactional cost, promotes adaptive organizational form, facilitate rapid formation of ad hoc work groups, promotes effective response to crisis. Commitment, one or other of the parties' intention to act, all right, which is commitment, attitude towards interacting with each other, importance of relationship and desire to continue, loyalty, reliability, etc. So if you look at the ingredients, the ingredients of these two, you realize that they may come in one way or the other, either at the beginning or at the end, of the relationship. So that's what we explained earlier. Okay, so precursors to trust and commitment, I think we have had, quite a lot of conversation on this one: relationship termination cost, relationship benefits, shared values, communication, opportunistic behavior, etc. We've discussed this quite a lot. And as we talked about closeness as intimacy, we actually talked about whether it's a physical or mental or emotional closeness. In instances of this nature, obviously a relationship is actually kept, All right. Then, of course, we've talked about customer satisfaction already. And these are satisfaction drivers. I'm sure you could read, more about them. And then customer feedback. So I want us to move to, okay, so all these you could actually look, because we've touched on them. Okay, so let's look at the core firm and its relationships, the kinds of relationship that the firm actually establishes. And don't forget, we discussed the first day the sets of relationships that we have. And then, yesterday we even discussed what role do we think we actually have in the sets of relationships that we have, and whether we think that we spend more time or, the other parties spend more time trying to propagate and sustain the relationship. And the same way, firms have different sets of relationships that they maintain. And as a relationship manager, you are supposed to identify or map all the kinds of relationship that your firm is supposed to keep, and understand the procedures or the framework that will govern that relationship. And as we were made to understand the other time, as we discussed it, relationships are of different characteristics and different calibers and different importance. You could not, basically say that all the 10 relationships that you have are of the same importance, and all of them have the same characteristics. They can never be, because of the factors that we discussed in terms of shared values, in terms of shared interest, in terms of personalities involved, in terms of so many other things that we talked about. So the same way, as a firm, as a relationship manager, or as a relationship officer or a marketing officer, your number one, priority in relationships, is to understand what really makes the relationship work, i.e., what is the core interest of the parties involved in the relationship. That is you, your interest, as well as the client or the customer's interest, or the external party's interest. You have to establish that. Then, of course, you have to establish the rest of the characteristics that define the relationship. So you have to have a relationship map of the set of relationships that you have and what conditions actually govern that relationship. It is crucial, because you cannot treat all the relationships as the same. All right. Now, who can tell me, or any of you can you identify the set of relationships that firms have on the same score as we did explain when we're talking about your social relationships? What do you think are some of the relationships that firms have? Yeah? What relationships do firms have? You can take one company, if that would be easier for you, and identify what types of relationship do you think they're going to have? Yes? Speed up, please. Firms and their relationships. I mean, some of you have your own company, isn't it? You maintain your own small business on campus, so it should be easier for you to tell me the kinds of relationship that firms have. Yeah. I'm listening, please. Hello, guys. Do you understand the point I'm making? Hello. Hello. Are you guys there? Hello. Can you guys hear me? Malik.
Yeah. It seems they don't want to talk.
Why don't you guys want to talk? Hello? Okay, so I will leave that one as an assignment for you guys, because that is a very simple, part of this particular, what do you call program? I mean, particular topic. Very, very simple. So if you don't want to discuss it in class, I would actually ask you to provide it as your assignment. Okay, so you would actually come up with at least 5 sets of relationships that firms have, and then explain the characteristics of those relationships and how a relationship manager must actually keep to those relationships. So we'll jump that and I'll give you guys as an assignment. So let's go to, let me see. Okay. So because of that, I'll jump those slides. Of course, I'll give, as I've given you as an assignment, you have to explore it and come and explain in class by yourself. So I'll jump that and I'll go to what we call towards internal partnerships as a concept. Now, this internal partnerships is actually considered as one of the relationship types by Christopher et al. I mean, they talk about what they call 6 markets. And one of the concepts that they talk about is internal partnerships, which has some characterization. And I'll try to explain that to you guys as you obviously, find out the rest of it to submit in class. Okay, so Christopher Ethel actually talked about, the idea that marketing should not actually be seen as only the function of the marketing department. And I think this point had actually been made by quite a number of marketing experts, that the entire company, the entire operations of a business is a marketing one. And so even those who serve in other departments must actually have that character, to the way they do things. And so they talk about these quadrants, as you can see them: involvement with marketing and not directly involved with marketing. So there were some departments in the business who have closer involvement with marketing or are directly involved with marketing, and those that are not directly involved with marketing. The same way, there are those who frequently come into contact or frequently or periodically come into contact with customers. And there are those who are infrequent in terms of their contact with customers. And they categorize, the department, in that order. So those who have, involvement with marketing and have frequent or periodic customer contact with marketing, they call them contractors. And that's the categorization they give. Now, these, departments are outside marketing, not necessarily marketing, but the department that are outside marketing that actually have these characteristics. Who can tell me which department in the business that has involvement with marketing and they perhaps frequently come into contact with customers? Who can tell me which department, or you can actually take a company in mind so that it makes it easier for you. Which organization do you think have some involvement with marketing? And when we talk about involvement with marketing, we mean that things that are characteristically marketing, all right, activities that are characteristically marketing, that these departments may come into contact with, and then they're likely to periodically come in contact with customers as well. Who can tell me? Who can tell me? Yeah, Emmanuel, thank you. Emmanuel, you're on mute.
Yes, sir. MTN customer service.
MTN customer services, fantastic. So MTN customer services, the function is customer services. That customer service function is a marketing type, and they continuously, come into contact with what customers as well. So that particular, department, although they may not call it marketing department, but they have, involvement. The function that they do has a marketing character, and they have a continuous involvement, with customers as well. Fantastic. You remember that we did look at, what do you call the some what do you call activities, and we asked them which of them, when we were looking at the 12 elements of marketing that has been converted into the 4 Ps. We looked at some activities, and then we asked which one is closer to product, which one is closer to price, etc. So on that basis, we're actually categorizing these as well. What do you think are the activities in businesses that have marketing characteristics, and that department comes regularly into contact with customers as well? So customer services, MTN. Yes, who else would give us another one? Yes, which department or which activity that are not necessarily in the marketing department, but has a marketing character, and the department, comes into contact with customers quite regularly or periodically. Yeah? Who else want to say? Who else want to say something? Okay, so now you guys are actually disappointing me now. I told Mimi that the City Campus class is much more effective than you guys, and I'm confirming that theory. Okay, so the sales department of banks. Okay, so Gloria, sales department of banks, yes, a good one. Again, they may not necessarily be a marketing department, but of course the actual activity of sales is a marketing one, and they come into contact with customers regularly. That's fine. Emmanuel, did you lift your hand up?
I was actually going to ask if front desk was a department. I mean,
which one?
Front desk.
Front desk. Yeah, I think it's part of the customer services that you mentioned. Yeah. Okay. Who else? Who else want to add? I mean, there are quite some, tricky ones. I wish somebody would actually highlight them. You guys have to critically think, because the level of, thinking that you're putting in is not acceptable. at all is not acceptable. You have to be critical in your submissions. Who else want to give an example? Who else want to give an example? What about the, okay, Goswell?
Sir,
Yeah.
so I believe, can I say brand influencers?
Say it again.
Brand influencers.
I
Like,
couldn't catch it.
like these individuals that are kind of like control social platforms for brands and everything, and
Yeah,
they can kind of like,
brand influencers.
yeah.
Yes, fantastic. Yes, definitely. Brand influencers, are definitely what do you call? They come into contact with customers regularly because they are asking questions, they are engaging with them, etc. And then also the performing marketing functions, which is marketing communication. Yeah, technical support. Fantastic, Jessica. That's amazing, contribution. So brand influencers are actually, part of that category, the contractors category, because of what they do and the regular contact with customers. Amazing. And Jessica has one fantastic, contribution as well. Jessica, can you tell us what, the technical support unit is and why you think it's part of that? Yeah?
Sir.
Mm-hmm.
What they do is to provide advice.
Yeah, your voice is low. Pump up a little bit.
Sorry, what they do is they provide the advice and guidance on how to use a product or service effectively.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, fantastic. I mean, technical, support teams. That's exactly what they do. And if you look at, most of the telcos, their technical support team are continuously in contact with customers, isn't it? And remember when we talked about servicing, when we're looking at the 12 elements of marketing converted to the 4 Ps, where we say servicing, it's actually part of the product itself. That's exactly what technical support team do. After, in fact, during, before, or during, the before, during, and after sales. So before sales, technical support teams sometimes are there to actually do demonstrations, tell you how the product is, the dimensions of the product, etc. All right. During sales, they may do exhibition as well. I mean, they may do demonstration as well, how the product works. After sales, they may be coming to fix, the product, or they may be calling you to tell you about some part of the product that probably is not working well and directing you how to use it. All right, product usage. So technical support team may not be marketing, but they're continuously in contact with, customers. Cuckoo, how are you? Morning. So they're continuously in contact with, customers. And of course, the activities that they do, the functions that they perform, all right, is a marketing one. All right. So these are some of the units that we're talking about. The units that are in contact with customers regularly, their activities are actually a marketing one because it involves marketing. They are the ones that Christopher and Co considers as contractors, which means that when you are looking at marketing training, and you remember we talked about the people factors of the 3 Ps in addition to the 4 Ps. All right. When we're talking about the people factors and considering the hiring mechanism to make sure that you're hiring people of marketing characteristics, you're giving training, or you're empowering people of marketing expertise or capacity. Now, these institutions or these departments must be considered because they have a marketing character. Their work involves marketing. All right. So you couldn't actually give empowering what do you call a process, or you cannot actually give training to only core marketing staff, or you couldn't actually say that you're giving what do you call a certain a department called marketing that kind of capability. You have to identify the other departments, the other services that are not necessarily marketing department, but have marketing characteristics in that consideration, including, what do you call, even the security, all right? The security, the front security that actually opens the door for, people to come in. Their work involves marketing because it's a service, all right, customer services. And they are constantly in touch with customers, or they are regularly or periodically in touch with customers. All right, let's go to the next one. Influencers. The involvement with marketing, but they are infrequent or no customer contact. Who will they be? Who will they be? Influencers. Their work involves marketing, but they're not, frequently in touch with customers. Yes? Yeah, who can tell me? Who can tell me? Or I should give that one to you as an assignment. All right, Marion. Okay, so Marion, Mimi says that you don't seem to get a question. Okay, so what we're saying is that aside the marketing department, there are departments in the business whose activities, are related to marketing, who are most likely to come into contact with marketing. All right, and there are those whose activities may not be related to marketing, but they may be in regular contact with marketing. We're trying to identify the departments in the business and how they relate or not relate to marketing, so that when we are looking at relationship, what do you call, activities, or we're looking at building capabilities, we consider these in a department as well. Okay, Emmanuel.
So R&D, research and development.
Okay, so can you explain it for us?
So most of the companies that's involved in the production of products have a department that actually goes into finding out what exactly customers want to satisfy the specific needs.
Mm-hmm.
And so that there comes the research and development department.
Yeah.
So they get in contact with the customers to find out their needs and wants, so that they can be able to satisfy it.
Yeah.
And most of this they do in relation sometimes with the marketing department, because they are the ones who point of contact between the company and these customers.
I agree with you. Now, can't we say that R&D is at the contractor stage? Because their work involves in the marketing. Obviously, market research is one key functions of marketing. And don't you think that R&D is somehow in a periodic contact with customers as well? So we can put them under contractors, can we?
Yes, I believe we can.
Okay. Of course, sometimes maybe one could actually fit two, but I think R&D may be in contractor stage. The influencers, Charlotte, did you say public relations? Public relations. PR itself is a marketing function, as we know it from the IMC, the Integrated Marketing Communication in the Framework. And I think, PR, public relations, are actually in constant touch with customers as well. So I think we could actually put them under contractors. Now, influencers, I need someone to tell me about influencers. Who do you think could be fit, could fit influencers? We shouldn't spend too much time on that. I told you guys we don't have enough time. We need to finish this and do the analytics. Okay, so, and by the way, I'm buying a simulation software from Harvard. Of course, that costs a lot of money, and we need to actually go through that simulation software. We need to, go through the tutorials, and then you use it, because that will be your assessment, and it's quite a lot. So we do not have enough time on the slides. along the line, I would ask you to, do the slides yourself so that we can have time to do the other exercises and assessment. Unlike the previous times where we have 13 weeks, we do not have 13 weeks anymore. So we have to make sure that we crush, these in a very, short period. Now, so no one is talking about influencers. Okay, what about brand ambassadors? Che, brand ambassadors, you mean what? Contractors or influencers? I mean, the word brand ambassador itself, should tell you that they have a continuous, they have a frequent, relationship with customers, and their work being brand ambassadors are marketing involved. Now, I'm talking about influencers. Emmanuel.
So please, if I get you right, the influencers are actually the part of the company that don't have little or any relationship with the customer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
but
the
their
accounts
work
department
involves marketing. Yeah. But their work, you
So-
see, look at the construct. You have involvement with marketing, but infrequent or no customer contact. All right. So if you look at the construct, which department or who in the business that whose work or that has a marketing kind of work or their work involves marketing somehow, but do not have frequent contact with customers, who would you say?
So I would say the accounting department, the accounting
Accounting.
department.
Yeah. How is the accounting work? How does that have involvement with marketing? I'm not saying you're wrong, but can you throw some light on it?
I would say because actually the accounting department works with almost every department in the firm, in that they are the ones who would normally determine the amount of money companies put or resource companies put into various projects and what have you. And so in terms of the work marketing does, I think the accounting department will have a little hand in it. But then with customer relations, I don't think they would be. I don't think any customer would have any relationship with anyone from the accounting department in any firm. For that matter.
Really? Don't you think accounting department actually has relationship with, has some customer contact, frequent customer contact? Are they not the ones who chase customers for their monies to pay or to pay their debts?
The accounting department?
Yeah, or they don't. Don't they chase customers for debts if they owe them?
I don't know if that's the work of the accounting. So
Uh,
if you could give me like a physical example of a company that whose accounting department actually chases,
or
even the
yeah, go on.
Even the if you're going to say the banks, for instance, and whenever they have issues with a customer or what have you, I don't think it's a personnel from the accounting department.
Okay,
Actually
so it'll be the credit, maybe a credit team, right?
Credit, exactly.
Okay, so so perhaps we can say that depending on the business, if it's a small business, then of course you're likely to have an accountant person serving as all these, functions like the credit person, etc. But if it's a big business, certainly you're going to have a credit department doing that job and perhaps the accountant. So yes, so does that mean that we can actually put the accounting department at isolates or at influencers? Because I'm not sure whether their work would also involve marketing. You get me, Emmanuel? Emmanuel, are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you. Sorry.
Okay. So what about placing it at isolates? Okay. Now the HR department, Mimi says HR about the human resource department. Okay. So can you explain, Mimi?
Okay, so I think The HR department helps employ people who are directly involved with the marketing aspects, but they don't have close
Customer
relations,
facing.
yes, with the
Okay,
customers.
I agree.
Okay.
So we can put HR at influencers. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, because their work involves in internal marketing, which is managing the internal staff, but then of course they may not have customer facing, what do you call, function. Okay, so ideally what we're trying to do is that you're identifying, departments or staff, that have, some marketing, responsibilities or some marketing functions, but may or may not necessarily be in contact with customers. And then also those that may not, have any marketing at all and may not be in contact with customers. Can we say the CEO? Where can we place the CEO of the business? The CEO of the business. Do they come into contact with marketing? Do they have marketing function?
So please, do you mean CEO as an individual or there's
Yeah,
a
the CEO
department?
as a position. Yeah, CEO as a position. I mean, the CEO is a position, isn't it, in the business?
I'll put them under modifiers.
And the modifiers. So
Yes.
they have a periodic contact with customer, don't they?
Yes. Once a
So
while,
I'll put it on the contractors.
Say it again.
I would put the CEO on that contractors because I believe the CEO should be directly involved in almost everything that has to do with the business.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I think they are not directly involved with the markets, like with marketing. They have employees doing that, so they are indirectly involved. But then once a while,
Okay, Mimi, when we say involved with marketing, not necessarily, because they have people doing it, but we're saying that the things that they do, their role has a marketing character. You get it? Yeah.
Okay.
Where their role has a marketing character. Do you think the CEO's role has a marketing character?
For me, I don't think so.
Emmanuel, so you propose the CEO as contractor.
So yes, please. I do. For instance, even yesterday, we had a lecture, and one of the lecturer was saying that her cousin who uses MTN as a network is a very frequent buyer of the network, so he buys data and airtime quite a lot. So on his birthday, he has he's given a voucher or something. Sometimes they even give him a phone, and the person who gives him this is no other person than the CEO of MTN himself. And so you see, so for the CEO to do this, he has to be aware of this customer's relevant and frequent purchases. And so to specially thank him for his patronage of the product, the CEO himself actually is the one who delivers these things to the customer. So
we can so we can have a CEO being infrequent or no customer contact. All right, that is from they may be in customer contact, but it's infrequent, isn't it? Because there are some CEOs that actually occasionally, come to speak to customers, etc. And can we say that the work that the CEO does has some marketing involvement? If yes, then of course we can put them under influencers, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Anyway, so who can we say are the isolates? Who can we say are the isolates? No direct involvement in marketing, no infrequent. Yeah.
What about the board of directors of the company?
Board of directors, yes. So we can actually put the board of directors at isolates completely, isn't it? Okay. So that's the essence of the exercise, is that we're saying that Emmanuel, come in.
How about purchasing and acquisition department?
Okay, so which called the procurement, isn't it?
The procurement, yes, the isolates.
Yeah, I think so. But the idea of purchasing and supply, or procurement, okay, yeah, I think we can put them at isolates, because I don't think that that has a very marketing function, and then of course they do not actually come into contact. They're always in contact with supply side as opposed to customers, all right? So you're very right, fantastic point. So we can put them at isolates, for example. So as we're saying, you have to be able to identify, the departments or the functions in the company, and find out who do you have some kind of relationship with marketing, with customers, and then you can actually rope them in your relationship building, what called process activities. It does not mean that the other ones do not become marketing or relationship aware, but we're saying that, because you have a certain, limited resources, you have to do this exercise to identify who must you actually give that capacity, to, or that development to. Okay, good exercise. All right, so we also discussed, the continuum. All right, the relationship continuum from transactional marketing to RM, and says that firms actually, take a particular, approach, whether they want to combine, or they want to, move to the extremes, or they want to have, coexistence of these theories, and, of these kind of uh, approach. And underpinning that, or based on that, is what we call the philosophies or the theory development. Whether IM is a metaphor, that is, when we talk about internal marketing, for example, based on what we have just discussed, whether internal marketing is a metaphor, internal marketing is a philosophy, or is a set of techniques, or is an approach. And what we mean is that if you're actually doing, remember we are talking about internal partnerships. So when you're actually considering the people within the organization, and you're actually considering the relationship with them, are you using it as, internal marketing as a metaphor, as a description of it, or it's a philosophical understanding that, your perspective of managing the customers of the firm, i.e., internal customers of the firm, is actually your outlook, and because of that, you institute some kind of measures or some kind of mechanisms in order that you can actually manage the internal, staff, just like you manage customers. So that means that you're going to have, things like loyalty schemes instituted for, the internal, staff, just like you would do for customers. You're going to have some policies, outlined in terms of to what extent do internal department actually serve the other departments, just as they serve, customers, for example. So you actually pick up, one of the, theoretical underpinnings to make sure that it guides the operations of the business. Again, in internal partnerships, we have the internal market, functional interfaces, organizational climate and culture. All these things actually, determine or impact on the, internal partnership as we're talking about. So the internal market, you have to identify them, and just like we have said, you're looking at which departments, what kind of department exists in the market, that is, or exists in the business, in the company itself, and what functions are they into, and what kind of relationship do they have with each and every department that are actually existing. And then you can come out with the modalities that you could actually use to manage them. Now, functional interfaces, for example, between the accounting department and the marketing department, it has to be seamless. There shouldn't be bureaucracies, just as between HR and marketing, etc. You have to understand that if a staff does not actually come to work, all right, although it has HR implications, it also has marketing implications. Let's take, for example, the sales guy. All right, if the sales guy has been given too much, workload, now it is likely to affect, their what do you call health, for example. And that can be an HR issue, but it can also be what? A marketing issue. So we must understand the interfaces between the department and how each and every department's activity impact on them in order that we could be effective at managing them. Then the organizational climate and culture, the policies that exist and the norms that exist in business, all right? So the organizational culture, we're talking about the rules and regulations outlined to govern the organization. In terms of the climate, we're talking about the norms that exist to govern the behavior of people. Are people using first names, or are people using, what do you call, other forms of, identity? I mean, if you go to most Ghanaian companies, all right, we tend to call people brother, sister, auntie, etc. I'm sure you've realized that, even at school. Yeah? You realize that, right? People tend to call, their colleagues, aunties, especially when the age gaps, Mimi said yes, when the age gaps are a little bit, they're quite a difference. You call them auntie, your uncles, that kind of thing. Now, to what extent do that actually foster relationships, or to what extent do that actually bond relationship within business, and how does that also limit people's ability to be accountable? For example, I think that is not a good culture, but that is what persists in most Ghanaian companies anyway. That people are calling some people aunties at workplaces. So you can imagine that if someone is called auntie, yeah, at the workplace, and the person is a subordinate, now, just in case the person falters, how do you effectively, issue, queries, or how do you effectively question that person's competence when you're calling them aunties or uncles? Yeah. So we have to look at the norms and obviously the protocols that exist within the business, and how that could actually foster internal collaborations, or can limit internal collaborations, in order that the marketing function could be affected. These are some of the things that we have to look at in terms of internal partnerships. Of course, it has a cultural dimension, but we should also be mindful of the corporate responsibility, or the organizational responsibility, not to ensure that those cultures can actually impact negatively on the business. And then, of course, empowerment, is another thing that we have to look at, and the exercise that we did is exactly that: how to empower, the various departments to ensure that they have the required capacity, or the requisite marketing capacity to function. So we're talking about identifying the department, the functions, and giving them the requisite training, or giving them the requisite marketing tools to ensure that they function appropriately. And then implementing internal marketing, programs, as we actually, highlighted. All right. Any questions or contribution? Any questions or contribution? All right. Yeah, Emmanuel.
So I was going to ask concerning the issue you mentioned with the internal and employees calling older employees aunties and uncles. Mostly when that happens, and like you rightfully mentioned, and then the older or the elder employee faults, mostly you don't report, you don't put the person to order, although you're both working at the same department, or you're even in line in terms of authority. You just have to report to someone who is a bit higher than both of you to check the situation, and then you can't cross-check. It has to be someone who is above you to report the issue.
Yeah, but
so
then go on. Sorry.
So are you saying that for this for a proper checks and balance to occur, we have to do away with all these cultural, I don't know the word for it for them, but then all these the cultures that actually regulate this elder and junior kind of thing, although you are both in the same authority or in the same department?
Yeah, I think that they are subcultures. They are not necessarily cultural as they're institutional. We call them subcultures because they emerge informally. Yeah. Now we're talking about relationship marketing, and we're talking about how does organization become effective relationship organization. All right. And we're saying that internal partnerships is one of the ways that an organization can be effective, can effectively implement RM, for example. So should RM translate to the customer, i.e., for us to have an effective relationship with a customer, we should have effective relationship internally. All right. That's the argument. That's the internal partnerships. And we're saying that if the organizational climate is not well aligned with that relationship parameters, then it can actually affect, the output, that is the relationship we have with customers. So for example, you have a colleague that you are supposed to supervise, all right? You are the higher, colleague, and they're supposed to be responsible to you. But this colleague is actually older than you, and you're calling them aunties, all right? Now, they haven't actually performed a particular function that would result in the satisfaction of the customer. And here is the case, this colleague of yours is breaching that, all right? Now, how do you exercise authority in order that they could be aligned if you're actually calling them aunties and uncles? Yeah. And as you rightly put it, you probably have to then, because of your inability to query that particular, what do you call colleague, you have to refer that to a senior person, a senior colleague. All right. That has actually created a bureaucracy informally. By that action, you have created an informal bureaucracy. Decisions that are supposed to be taken at your level in order that the service stream can be faster has to be escalated to a senior colleague. Perhaps they may not even be in the business. So effectively, you have created a bureaucracy that could lengthen the time taken to execute that particular activity. Is that clear?
Yes, totally.
Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm saying that we have to align the organizational climate and culture to the relationship parameters or to the relationship, protocols. So the firm, as part of the process, the process element that we discussed, has to, implement, a particular, organizational procedure to say, in this firm, we use only first names, all right? Or we use a particular name, not anything informal. So when you're calling Adjoa, you're calling Adjoa. Everybody's used to that, regardless of age difference. If we're calling everybody Mr. Obi, as in second name, everybody is Mr. Obi and Miss Obi or Mrs. So and so. And so there is no perceived barrier, all right, that could inhibit the practice of what do you call relationship or delivering of the our mandate at the workplaces. Louis says, I think you just put the age gap aside and tell them the right thing, but you can still call them auntie or uncle. Is that true? What Louis is saying, can you be calling people uncles and aunties and still be forthright with them, frontal with them? Emmanuel.
I think you can, but then from the perspective of whomever you're calling auntie or uncle, they may not be willing to actually listen to what you have to say because they feel that you are calling them the respect that they deserve. And so whatever you say to them will be a form of you disrespecting that authority in terms of auntie or uncle you've given them. So you can go ahead and say, oh, auntie, you didn't do this right. Uncle, you should have done this and done this. But just because you've added that auntie or uncle to whatever instruction you're giving, they don't tend to listen to what you have.
Louis, let me hear your point. Do you think it is generic, or is general, or is individual? I mean, individually, some people can do that. But do you think everybody can actually be calling people uncle and still calling them to order? Louis?
I personally do not think so.
Benjamin, yeah, let's listen to you.
So I've been to some companies, and in those companies, I think they are aware of some of these things, so they address people by either their first names or probably their surnames,
Mhm,
just to make sure that that sort of, when too much respect is also in the business, sometimes it's very hard measuring performance and all that,
mhm,
because that same person that you think you've given him or her that respect thinks that, oh, I also owe you some kind of favor.
mhm,
So if I'm supposed to give you 6.5 because I feel you respect me, I can give you 8,
mhm,
which I also believe that. So most of the companies know this. So in most companies, whether you are old, whether you are young, I still call you by your first name.
mhm,
And I think that that has also helped some of these companies. But then those that have not realized this are still
mhm.
fighting some of these things in their company as well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Benjamin. Now, Louis says that I do that a lot. I do it in my mom's business. Yeah, I agree. Individually, people can do that, but in the general terms, it is always difficult, for people to be in that position. One thing we should get clear: calling somebody uncle and aunties does not necessarily mean you're according them respect. I think is an authority, it's an authority language. I mean, if you read Hofstede's, cultural, what do you call, hierarchies and that categorization, they, I mean, he talks about high context cultures where, there's a power, dimension, to the way people actually work. Now, in our society, the word uncles and aunties and all those things are, well, we actually, kind of connote it as respect, but it's actually a power position. All right, it's actually a power authority position. It's a power position, and so immediately you invoke that particular, names or identities at workplaces, you are invariably, transferring power to them. All right, and you're invariably creating barrier, between you and those parties, and that is why it makes it difficult for people to actually break it once they start calling people uncles and aunties, because you're transferring the traditional, what do you call, domestic reference point of authority into the workplace, and that makes it difficult for the mind to segregate, your relationship from the domestic onto the workplace. So yes, Lewis, I can understand that you could have the ability to do that. Most people can't, and that's why organizations standardize. So organizations make sure that, you remember when we talked about the process part of the 3 Ps, you have to make sure that you're having a standardized, behavior, and so your procedures must be standardized so that each and everyone, regardless of their ability or inability, are able to, exercise their duties. So small businesses, in most cases, try to make sure they retain their customers. According to Benjamin, small businesses, they may be, calling people, aunties and aunties to retain their customers. Fine, yes, but we're talking about within the firm. How do we ensure that we have a very good, organizational climate and culture existing, in order that, our work are not hampered in terms of extending it to customers? Okay, so Louis, maybe this is another thing for you. Maybe you want to institutionalize it at your workplace, so that if you're not there, your other staff will be able to, query their colleagues, or, if you're not there, because maybe you can do it, they may not be able to do it, and so you have to have a standardized procedure, at workplace. All right, guys, I hope you understand, what we're actually, talking about. We'll move on. Okay, any questions or contribution? Benjamin, you wanted to say something?
No, sir.
Okay, say it.
Sir, I'm fine.
Okay. So internally driven activities of marketing nature that enhances employee customer engagement, influences staff attitude positively towards organization needs, and then impact positively on firm performance. And that's what we're talking about, instituting internal marketing, activities. So anything that enhances employee customer engagement. For example, giving rewards to employees that treat customers well. All right. And my own firm, those days when I used to work with T-Mobile, this and Vodafone in UK, this is something that they did fantastically well. So they monitor your calls, and when they see that your engagement with customer was fantastic, they give you a bottle of wine. And that was exciting. I mean, not that they've given you a bottle of wine, but that recognition, was so exciting. They would take you photos with a wine. They will send an email across that you've done this fantastic to a customer. That actually, it's an internal, employee reward system that encourage good engagement. Obviously, influences staff attitude positively towards organizational needs. So when your productivity is high, let's say your wrap time is low, your comfort zones, is low, etc., that actually impact on the productivity of the business. Again, you are rewarded. And when impact positively on firm performance, you are rewarded. So when we institute internal marketing activities or like reward systems in workplaces, that also builds that kind of atmosphere. And then the firm relationship quality must equal employee or equals effect of employee dissatisfaction or on customer engagement. So we're saying that if within the firm, all right, you do not have effective, relationship quality, it would have impacts. Yeah, I had quite a lot of those wine actually. I remember there was one Christmas time that I was singing for customers. I used to sing a lot for customers during Christmas, and they would give me wine for that. So yeah, I mean, it was fun. My workplace was very fun. I mean, most workplaces, well, I don't know, but the number of workplaces that are boring, but I've worked in some quite interesting workplaces. Fantastic colleagues, fantastic managers, etc. They used to plait my hair because of my bushy hair and things like that. It was fun. I used to love working there. Anyway, yeah. So we're saying that if the internal quality, relationship quality in firm is not good, it will impact on customers. Because obviously, if you're moody at work because of the kind of relationship your boss has with you or the kind of relationship your colleagues have with you, that would be transferred onto customer engagement, the same way, so you've got to be mindful of that, making sure that the internal, relationship is good. Functional interfaces, breakdown of functional barriers, as we talked about, organization-wide practice of marketing functions such as intelligence gathering, dissemination of intelligence, and responsiveness to such intelligence. We're discussing, implementing internal marketing activities, and these are some of them. Just as we, collect data on customers to understand them through research or through intelligence gathering, the same thing that we have to do internally to make sure that we are monitoring, staff behavior, we're collecting feedback from staff, we're trying to identify what excites them and what does not excite them in order that we could actually solve them, just like we do for customers, all right? So we're doing all these to understand, internally the employee, behaviors and attitudes, and make sure that we can solve them. If an employee comes to work and they're moody, you have to have a system, a way that people can actually find out from. I remember in my team at T-Mobile, if you go to work and your countenance shows something, you would have a line manager coming to sit by you or inviting you to an office and say, you're not as you used to, you're not cheerful as your usual. What is wrong with you? They will try to query, and if it's something that, deserves you going home, they can ask you to go home, or they can ask you to take about a 30-minute break or 1 hour break and then come back, that kind of thing. So you have to be monitoring, you have to be observing staff attitude, staff posture, and their demeanors in order to get you some information or some intelligence to act on. Okay. Any questions or contribution? Okay, as we said, organizational climate and culture as deep-seated, unwritten system of, shared values and norms within organization, policies and practices that characterize the organization. We have to look into all those things. And as I said, if we're using aunties and, uncles at workplaces, to what extent is that impacting negatively or positively on the fair? It could be impacting positively, but we have to be mindful that there are no, informal, kind of subcultures that are negatively impacting on our behaviors. And then, of course, empowerment, responsibility to take decisions, of value without top management approval. Now, this is crucial. And as we're discussing, if, the point that Emmanuel made earlier on, if you have to everything defer to top management, then you are gradually, taking away, empowerment. You are gradually taking away authority that could get, things done quickly. And that could actually, kind of impact on service delivery, because remember, we are dealing with time. So organizations that have a very good relationship in the atmosphere are the ones that actually leave authority to frontline, so that frontline is able to take quick decisions that impact on customer satisfaction. And that has to be established, right? And then derived from trust, performance, experience, longevity, etc. I think we've discussed that at length already. So operationalizing empowerment, information about organizational performance has to be circulated to, staff. People should know, organizations, performance in terms of revenue, in terms of, productivity. People should know profitability, positions of the firm, etc. Rewards based on organizational performance. Obviously, when organization performs well, the fruit has to trickle down. People have to have their fair share of what they have contributed into the organization's performance. Knowledge that enables employees to understand and contribute, power to make decisions that influence direction, and staff development in terms of training, in terms of, educate, what do you call, steady leave, etc., has to be implemented. So all that we're talking about is that there is an internal partnership, or there's an awareness of internal, staff, being managed just as we manage customers. We have to have that philosophical approach, customer centrism approach in the business itself, so that we see the staff in the business or the people in the business as partners, just as we see customers, and then we treat them as such. So all these activities must be implemented in order that we could have that cheerful, relational, what do you call, internal, organization, just as we would with our, external customers. So implementing IM means meeting needs of employees to in turn meet the needs of customer. Relationship development process where staff autonomy and know-how combine to create and circulate new organizational knowledge. Ongoing training, as we said, formal policies, informal communication, management style, etc., has to be reviewed. Okay. Any questions or contribution? Any questions or contribution? Yeah? Okay. So another of the, in fact, I have, just a minute. Okay. Okay, ma'am, no, please. Okay. I'm actually, it looks like I'm actually going over the things that I gave you as an assignment, because the relationship types are the ones that are individually teased out and we're going through. Okay, because I wanted you to do that assignment for not speaking in class, but unfortunately, I think the rest of the slides are made up of that relationship, so I'm forced to talk about them. Do you think I should go through, or I should leave you guys to do it?
Please go through.
Benjamin.
Please go through, sir.
What is the motivation? What motivation?
And
Attentiveness is
Say,
willing to learn.
say it again. I didn't hear it well.
we promise to make an A.
You promised to. Okay, we will participate. Okay. Please go through. Okay, because of Jessica, I'll do that. Otherwise, I was not going to go through. Okay, so we actually, the first question that I asked is exactly what we're going through. I was asking you guys the set of Emmanuel. Are you jealous? Emmanuel is jealous of me.
Very, very.
Okay, so what I was actually asking was that if you look at a typical organization, what relationships or set of relationships that they have, and one of them is internal partnerships, as we've talked about, the organization's relationship with its staff, all right, with its internal people that they deal with. That's what we've just dealt with. The next set of relationship is organization's relationship with suppliers, all right? So who can tell me, who can explain this section? We've explained the internal one. So customer partnerships, so we're done with, okay, so, okay, we are done with internal, but customer partnership is one, yes, Ijali, sorry. Did I pronounce your name right? Ijali? Hello? Yes, okay, good. All right, so Ijali, yeah, so customer partnership is one. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, thank you. Now, who can explain the supply partnerships as another set of relationship that company has? Yeah? Who can explain that? I mean, this is Coco, right?
Sir, please, is it the relationship that the company has with its suppliers?
Yeah, of course. The name
Right.
talks about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, dilate on that. Put a lot more on that.
Okay, so because the suppliers bring goods or inventory to the company,
Mhm.
it's they sort of develop a relationship with them.
Okay.
So,
Okay, good
yeah.
one. Yes, Emmanuel, let's listen to you.
Okay, I was going to say the same thing. It's basically a relationship a firm has with its supplier. So I'd say a continuing relationship between a firm that is buying with a firm that is supplying over a period of time.
Okay. Identify the various supply partnerships that a firm has. Who can tell me? Identify the various through drop shipping. Okay. Who identify the various supply relationships that a firm has? What are some of the kinds, of supply relationships of a firm? Because I don't think that you expect the supply relationship to be one. That's why we say supply partnerships. How many supply partnerships do you think a firm would have? Guys, be critical. Pump up. Yeah? Supply relationships. See, that's why I wanted to give you guys as an assignment. Yeah? How many supply relationships do you think a firm would have? So, okay, so apart from that, so all of you, you're just thinking about the raw material. All right. I'm sure that's why you're stuck. You're just thinking about the raw material. What about the supply of staff? Yeah, skill set. Yeah, Emmanuel.
I was going to say the supply of personnel.
Yeah.
For example, I know DataBank are in partnership with SEO, and they provide trained personnel.
Exactly. Yeah. So you guys are just quiet because all of you are just thinking about raw material, but organizations have different supplies, right? So supply of personnel. Yeah. What else? Supply partnerships. What other suppliers do organizations have? Yeah. So Emmanuel has given us supply of personnel. Good one. What else? Logistics. Okay. Yes. Logistics. Yeah. What else? So supply of personnel, supply of logistics. By logistics, Marion, can you actually expatiate on that?
Maybe the company has a certain company that takes care of their logistics services for them. I
Okay.
don't know
When you
if
say
it can be
logistics services,
included.
when you say logistics services, can you tell us what you mean? Give us specifics.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Who else can come in? Because logistics quite many. All right. Supply of machinery. Okay. You have transportation. All right. Some firms actually hire, what do you call transportation? They contract others to provide that. The fleet, for example. Some firms may actually, supply or may actually, hire or not hire, but rent, let's say, warehousing, right? Security, yeah, Gloria, security, yes. So again, security, which is part of personnel, or we can actually, split them, and say security and personnel, which personnel means the actual people doing the work internally in terms of what do you call
I
the
got logged out.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. And then, of course, security. Yeah, some firms actually, what about consumables? Supply of consumables. Yeah, stationery, pens, papers, and all those things. All right. Yeah. What other supplies do we have? What other supply partnerships do we have? Yeah, other supply partnerships. Technical know-how. Yes. Food. Yes. What about cleaning? Yeah. Some firms, sanitary management, exactly. Yeah. So you could see that supply partnerships, we have so many. You see, so please, does whatever advice firms get from consulting companies fall under this? Exactly. So you realize that if you have a relationship management role and all that you were thinking about is your relationship with the core supply, maybe the company that actually supplies the core, product. Marion, should I go on, say? Yeah, you can go on. I was saying that the logistics, okay, yeah. Mary, go on. Explain what you were just saying.
Okay, so I was saying that a company can have a logistics partnership with another supplier in terms of maybe getting equipment to send products to customers or some equipment to help track deliveries and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
Yeah.
I think.
Okay, that's a good one. All right, good. So you could realize that, or can realize that when we talk about supply, all right, and supply partnerships, an organization could have so many supply partnerships, but traditionally we think about that dyadic relationship between a company and a supplier, but the supplier is not one, it's a multi-set, all right. We have a multi-set of suppliers, including those who give you security, those who give you personnel in terms of the employees, because these days we even have agencies, right, that actually supply with personnel. All right. We could have consumable supplies. We could have consultants, who come in to maybe do research for you, do so and so. So many supplies that we have. I mean, yesterday I had a meeting with an organization that I supply consultancy for. So I, take care of their marketing communications. They have outsourced that to me that I do. And I had a conversation. That company also has other supply, relationship with other businesses. So you realize that an organization could have about 10 different, supply sets of relationship, or 10 different sets of relationships that borders on supply, all right? Other than the core, raw product or raw material supply that they have. So, and that relationship could also be categorized into different forms. So if you look at the company here, which is you, as we're talking about, the company, and you look at the relationship, you have supplier A, supplier B, supplier C, yeah? All of these suppliers could be of suppliers of something else. Do you get it? And then you have the company, the competition, and the indirect, non-competition. And then they feed all into the customer. So you see the interaction that are also going on, horizontal and vertical relationships. So in the supply, relationship, you have example of a potential horizontal relationship, which is collaboration, all right? So even competitors, all right, competitors could be in a supply relationship with you. Who can explain that? As in a horizontal relationship, not a vertical one. So you realize that the vertical relationships, either integration, forward or backward integration, or forward or backward, vertical relationship. You realize that the firm is dealing with, one, the people actually supplying the raw material, including staff, consumables, etc. But then also you have the one that the company actually onward provide the product for distribution. All right, they're also within the supply partnership equation. Yeah, sorry. And then of course we have the horizontal relationship, supply relationship, involving the company and its competitors or non-competitors. Now, who can tell me a situation where an organization has a supply relationship with its competitors? Yes, pump up. Today, you guys, yesterday and today, you haven't been amazing. And I'm quite surprised. Now you have to redeem yourself before we close. We have just about 15 minutes. Is it 5 minutes or so, or 10 minutes? All right, Samuel.
Yes, I think for like an example, the Apple, the company that produces phones, and I think their screens, they're very dark screens. They purchase it from their competitor Samsung.
Excellent. So there is a Samsung Apple relationship which had been in court several times, but they still have relationships though. All right. There's a supply relationship between Apple and Samsung. In fact, the story has it that Samsung provided semiconductors for Apple right from the beginning, and they have other relationships. All right. Even to the extent that people accuse Samsung, for example, for copywriting, getting Apple's intellectual property and taking it to intellectual property based on the supply relationship that they have. But the relationship is still going on, all right? Again, airlines have code, sharing, kind of relationship where when one airline is full, they can pass you on to their competitor. They have, that kind of arrangement, collaboration, which, if you look at some of the airline arrangement, there's One World, there is a Sky Alliance, involving, I think Sky Alliance involves KLM and, Air France also. Okay, my part-time job is an air ticket agent, and my suppliers are EK, ET, and AWA, which supply air tickets to us. Okay, that's a good one. Jindon, yeah, so that's what Jindon is actually saying. Yeah, you want to say something, Miri?
Yeah, and what you were saying, sometimes when you go to the markets and maybe you want to buy something and the one you are buying from doesn't have, sometimes they go to their nearest competitor and then take that product for you.
Yeah, so, the one that they have a relationship with.
Yes,
The same way with the hotels. Some of the hotels have a supply relationship amongst themselves. So you go to Hotel A and it's full, they will still take your booking and transfer you to another hotel. Sometimes they will make you aware and say that, when if we are full and then we transfer, are you okay for us to transfer you to another hotel, and we sell the ticket to the customer. Okay, so Jindon was actually talking about the vertical relationships that we're talking about, which is a good one, an example that he cited. Okay, so yeah, have you seen something about University of Ghana application along this line? Have you taken notice? When you were applying to University of Ghana, what did you see that bothers on what we're discussing? Yeah? Guys, yeah, go on.
Please asking with regards to the competition.
Yeah, Gideon. Okay, let's Gideon come in.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, as in when you are filling the forms, there's this question they ask whether if you don't meet the cutoff point or if they don't pick you, you should be affiliated to maybe different university.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So they will ask you, are you okay if we transfer you to Methodist University or Catholic University, that kind of thing, all right?
Yeah, sure.
So what relationship do you think they're having?
Okay,
vertical or horizontal?
Vertical.
Is that vertical?
No, horizontal, because
horizontal, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So the University of Ghana is now having a horizontal supply relationship with other universities, although they are their competitors, and saying, okay, if we don't take you, are you okay if we pass you on to Methodist University, right? Methodist University. And the question, you answer yes or no. So that's the new kind of arrangement that is happening within industry. So the supplier partnerships is not only with your vertical relationships, that is those that you take raw materials from, or those that you pass on, your finished product for onward supply. But we're talking about even within the competition, there are some supply relationship going on. Some competitors even sell or send some part of the product, which we've seen in Apple and Samsung relationship. Others, it is a complete bouquet, that is one is full, they pass on to the other side. Of course, there's also supply relationships amongst companies that are not directly in competition or are indirect competitors, to you. For example, the what we call the OEMs, original, equipment manufacturers in Taiwan and in all those places. They're not in direct competition, with the mobile phone companies, but they provide components. They produce or manufacture components, of these mobile, which means that they have the capacity to assemble, mobile phones, or they may have the capacity to go into that. But of course, they deal with, that. You could also talk about, things like, the networks, all right? The telecom networks and the way they operate. They may not necessarily be in a vertical relationship. They could be in a collaborative relationship. If you take, for example, also NGOs, and companies, for example, some companies, as part of their CSR activities, they have a supply relationship with some NGOs so that the NGOs execute their CSR activities for them. It may not be a vertical relationship. It could be a horizontal relationship. Usually, the idea of horizontal relationships are companies that are of similar sizes, and of similar capacities, but it may not necessarily be in terms of physical sizes. In terms of sometimes, in terms of ideological positioning, they are of similar mindset and they would work hand in hand together. But of course, in majority of times, the discussion is that companies of a similar size are usually in a collaborative or in a horizontal relationship because they are of similar size, they are of similar capacity, etc. And those smaller companies and bigger companies are usually in a vertical kind of relationship, but that is not static. That can actually change contextually depending on how the supplies or how the items involved in the relationships are. So we have vertical and horizontal relationships, in the supply partnerships, and then of course, partnership costs, are issues to consider, and partnership benefits are issues to consider. So when you're actually looking at that relationship, there are things that you have to consider, in managing those relationships, because it's about time, 9:20. So I'm sure you have other lectures to go. All right, thanks guys. Any questions or contribution? Any questions or contribution? Okay, so you may have seen that I have uploaded the slides on the, on Sakai, and I've also added your course outline. I have uploaded also your simulation, guide, user guide. Please make sure that you start going through the simulation user guide. As I told you, that will be your assessment. It's costing me a lot of money to procure it, from Harvard. And I would not want to procure that and you guys don't use it. Obviously, we're going to use it for assessment anyway. So, and your assessment now is carrying more weight than your exams. I think assessment is now 60%, your exams is 40%. And we're going to use the simulation because it's customer centricism. It would give you much more, closer to practice, experience in how to approach a customer centricism situation at the workplace. So start going through the user manual. When you go to Sakai, you go to, I think, your resources, and I think assignment. The resources is where the slides are. Assignment is where you can see the user guide for the manual, for the simulation. There's also the simulation link, but don't click on that yet because we haven't begun that. When we begin, I think you have about 3 days to solve the simulation questions, or maybe we can do it a day. And, but make sure you go through the user manual carefully and clearly. I was thinking of doing it in groups, but we may do it individually, so that I can actually know who are pulling their weight and who are not. If usually you're in groups, you tend to, kind of free ride on people. So please, the course has not been uploaded on my Sakai. Really? Samuel? Okay, guys, who has seen the course on your Sakai? Samuel, it means you have to check with the, UGMC, if the course hasn't been uploaded on your Sakai. Has anyone got the same problem?
Yes, please.
Who has? Devita, you have the same problem?
Yes.
Okay, can you contact UGCS? Because once you register, they have to upload it into your Sakai. It means your registration hadn't been completed, maybe. Okay, so check. Mimi, if you can check for them as well, but class rep is not supposed to do everything for you guys. So please check with UGCS, sorry. UGC, I said UGMC, sorry. UGCS, to ensure that they can solve that for you. All right. And those who have it, can you please, get it to your colleagues who don't have it as well, so that you guys are on the same page. But I can also send it to Mimi to circulate on your platform. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys, for coming. And have a good day. And don't forget to put on your face masks. All right.
All right, sir.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye. Thank you, Emmanuel. Yeah, thanks.